Welcome back to my channel, everybody. Last night I got the opportunity to see the newest film in the John Krasinski created universe, A Quiet Place: Day One. Although this is the third film in the franchise, it's actually set as a prequel to the events of the first two films, allowing us to see the events of the aliens first making contact and how the world reacted to it. We did get to see like a few minutes of that, like the opening scenes of the second film with the Abbott family, the John Krasinski family, where the aliens first make contact in their very suburban area and kind of the chaos that ensues. Although that only happens over like the first 15 minutes of the film, so you don't really get to marinate in what's going on that first day because it jumps back to the present day with Emily Blunt's character and her kids and what happens after the events of the first film. Here, we get to see the first few days after the first contact with the aliens and really just see the repercussions of these creatures arriving and how the world dealt with that, how the military dealt with that. Nobody understood the whole silence thing with these creatures and that they're super sensitive to sound, so we get to see them piece that together, and that's really exciting. In this film, our main lead here is Lupita Nyong'o's character, and she essentially enters the city with a bunch of friends. I don't want to give too much away because they hide a lot in the trailers for this film. While there, the city gets attacked by these creatures for the very first time, and while everyone is frantic and trying to figure out what's going on, the military is pretty much telling everybody that there are boats leaving out of the harbor that are taking civilians, and all you have to do is get to the harbor for evacuation. However, when everyone is beelining it towards the harbor, just running for their lives, Lupita Nyong'o's character is essentially like, I have one more thing I have to do before I leave the city. There's somewhere I have to go that's very important to me, and something that I need to get that's very important to me. And instead of running with everybody, she goes into the heart of the city to do that. On her quest to get this thing that's very important to her, she meets Joe Quinn's character. He's better known as Eddie Munson from Stranger Things, and he's also now Johnny Storm in the Fantastic Four movies. Essentially, he's a foreign exchange student. He comes from the UK and he's going to business school in New York City, and he doesn't have any friends or family or really anywhere to even go. So he's just lost and afraid upon meeting Lupita Nyong'o's character. He kind of latches himself onto her and doesn't leave her alone, where she just wants to be left alone, but she shows him kindness. And in a world where everyone's just freaking out and fighting for their lives, that kindness kind of makes him not want to leave her. He kind of wants to stay by her side and have her help him figure out how to get out of the city. Although reluctant at first, she eventually lets him tag along, and the two of them have to navigate through this creature-infested New York City and try and make their way around without getting killed. When this movie was first announced, I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty skeptical, not because I don't want more films in this franchise. I love this franchise. It's one of my favorite horror franchises ever. I was skeptical because instead of following the Abbott family, the John Krasinski family, we're following a new set of characters. I was so invested in the Abbott family and where their story was going, especially because in the last film, we're left on kind of a cliffhanger where the family is separated and they have to find their way back to each other. So basically, because the last movie left me on a cliffhanger wanting more of that story with that family because I didn't get any closure, I was kind of upset when they announced that this was going to be, again, a prequel following new characters, and it could have been disastrous. If I didn't like this film, I didn't like the people in it, I didn't like the direction of it, if this movie didn't make a lot of money at the box office, it would cancel the franchise essentially, and then I would never get to see the third film with the Abbott family and what goes on in that whole storyline. I was afraid of never getting closure for the Abbott family. So there's a lot riding on this movie's shoulders. I mean, it's a prequel for a wildly successful franchise that's being directed by somebody that doesn't have that big of a filmography. He hasn't directed a lot of big budget movies like this before, so I was nervous. However, I'm really happy to say that this movie was just absolutely fantastic. Not only does this nail the tension of the original two films, but also the atmosphere here is incredible. The other two films really took place in like quiet towns in the suburbs, whereas in this film, it takes place in New York City, which is considered one of the loudest cities in all of the United States at all times, both morning and night. So, having a bunch of noise-sensitive creatures land in the most noisiest city in America, it gave the writers and directors a lot of creative liberties to have fun with that dynamic and really create some interesting ways that people in New York City would really get screwed if something like this were to actually happen. Me being one of them because I also live in New York. We are not quiet people, that's for sure. This movie also continues a trend in this franchise that I love, where we just get the richest, deepest characters that you don't normally get from horror movies. Not all, but A lot of horror movies come out and it's just teens that you don't really care about, yet you root for them anyway because you just want them to defeat the bad guy, because of course we all see ourselves in the roles of these people and we kind of watch it as if we're there and how would we react. So you don't really get a lot of backstory for characters. But in this franchise, they do such a good job at making you care about the people that you're following. They really get you to just fall in love with these characters. And that is so crucial for us as the audience to attach ourselves and really make us care about them. Look, there's a lot of scary shit in this film. There's a lot of tension, but they also sprinkled in geniusly a bunch of really intimate moments between Lupita Nyong'o's character and Joe Quinn's character that you didn't need in this movie, but the fact that it's there and it makes you just care so deeply about them and you get an insight into their head and who they are as people. This movie has tons of just heartwarming moments. One of them being a scene taking place in a bar with a magic trick. That's all I'll say, but you can't help but just feel so much warmth in your heart after it. It's just so masterfully done. This movie is firing on all cylinders when they're just bonding, in my opinion, and you're getting this rich backstory between the two of them and seeing them connect over this horrific thing that's happening to them. I don't believe that horror movies need these bonding moments and these rich characters with deep backstory to succeed, but when horror movies do give us that stuff and they take the time to really make us fall in love with the core characters, they're all the better for it. And that's why I think this is one of the best horror franchises that we've had in the last, 10 years. The performances between Lupita and Joe are remarkable, like nothing short of pure standout performances here. They both also have really well-written, well-deserved character arcs. Lupita's character here has an arc that I don't want to spoil because again, they don't tell you a lot about her in the trailer, but it's one of resilience and strength. Whereas in Joe's arc here is one of bravery. He really starts this film terrified. He has panic attacks when creatures get too close and doesn't really know how to get himself out of sticky situations because he just panics. However, with the help of Lupita's character, she kind of helps him find that bravery that he needs towards the end of this film to kind of do what needs to be done in any given moment. And I thought that was really beautiful, honestly, that he found that comfort in her. He starts this movie just a coward, and by the end of it, when he finally gets that heroic moment, it's one of those things where you just want to stand up and cheer, and I love when a movie can pull that off. It's just so satisfying. The only gripe I honestly have with this movie isn't actually a fault within the movie itself, but one of my own personal preference. There's no besting the alien like there is in the last two films, where there's that moment where the hero finally kills one of the creatures. You know, in the first one, Emily Blunt finally kills the alien with a shotgun at the very end, where she and her daughter find out about its noise sensitivity. In the second one, both the kids killed their own alien defending their parents, which was beautiful because it turned the dynamic of the first film, where the kids were the ones constantly being defended by the parents. They got their moment to shine in the second one. Here, there's no epic moment like that where they come together and they team up and they take on an alien. This is very much a movie about just hiding and running. I don't know. Again, it's not a fault of the movie because that's not important in the story, but for me personally, I would have loved to just see them team up and figure out a way to kill one of the aliens at least in like a really epic moment towards the end of the film, but you don't really get that. Instead, you get a really emotional moment, whereas in most movies end with a banger, explosions, the shotgun to the alien's face. Here it's one that really makes you leave the theater in a bittersweet kind of feeling. So again, not really a fault on the movie, it's just my own wants and desires, but I can't fault it for that. One of the main characters of this film is the sound design, and they use it here brilliantly. This movie does a good job at really pulling you close to listen because everything has to be a whisper or a tiptoe, and any slight noise could really just set off these creatures. So again, like I said, everything's so quiet, so you're almost like trying really hard to listen, and then something happens like a jump scare and it just rocks you to your core. You'd think that sound design wouldn't be a big thing, but it really is. Every creak, every gust of wind, a fountain of water going, everything has to just be spot on, and it's just all really well done. So I mean, what can I say, guys? This movie has great performances with characters that are beautifully well done and well written. It has great set pieces, great sound design. It's scary when it needs to be. It's moving when it needs to be. It's hard not to tell you to run to the theater to see this. I cannot recommend it enough. The last couple movies I reviewed on this channel have all been reviewed pretty high, but I mean, what can I say? We live in a summer right now where every movie that's come out since The Fall Guy on has been good. So this review is obviously going to follow suit. I give this film the first 10 out of 10 this summer. I don't believe it's better than the other two films in the franchise, but it is a worthy success for it. It's masterfully well done and wildly enjoyable. I absolutely loved it, and I cannot wait to see it again. Anyway, guys, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Hopefully, I gave you a reason to go to the movies this weekend. If I did, I'd love to talk about it. Enjoy your weekend, everybody, and as always, I'll catch you next time.